So what are we talking about today?
Home builders say they're on the edge of a steeper downturn as buyers pull back.
This article, I read through it myself, and it's talking about the confidence of home builders, which kind of indicates a leading into the market where they stop feeling confident, they stop building, and jobs get pulled back, and it's a lot of indication of what's going to come, you know, and the economy and the market, right?
Well, I mean, obviously we talk about this all the time. Real estate's a very geographic thing. Mm-hmm. I know in Orange County that there are several areas and cities that are slated to build thousands of new homes. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious to see how the next 6, 12, 24 months play out, because this article does say that home builders are potentially looking to pull back a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious to see if that's sort of the narrative in Orange County. And I guess time will tell there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the same narrative that we're hearing right now. It's, you know, the interest rates have spiked up, they're cooling off the market, the economy is talking about a recession, and a lot of people are pulling back.
There's definitely a lot of fear mongering out there.
There's a lot of fear mongering.
There's a lot of
doom
uncertainty. There's a lot of doom and gloom. Are we dealing with a recession? Yes. Are we dealing with inflation? Yes. It is what it is.
So home prices surged over the last, year or two, couple years, like 40%, right? Home builders were trying to build, they couldn't build fast enough back then. They just kept doing jobs and they couldn't keep up, and now things have pulled back a little bit. And this article here says housing starts for single family homes dropped nearly 19% year over year in September, and this is according to a U.S. Census. Building permits, it's a good indicator. It says building permits, which are an indicator of future construction, fell 17%. One of the nation's largest home builders, the Pulte Group, reported its cancellation rate jumped from 15% in the second quarter of the year to 24% in the third. So there's obviously an indicator here that things are slowing down, and usually you see it first with home building and permits, like when they stop pulling them and stop doing jobs and planning to build. I mean, this is on a national scale too.
They're just pouring money into whether or not it's the right time to build and how much to build.
Yeah.
And so if builders are pulling back, then that's a very clear indication that the market is slowing.
On top of that, you do have talk of the economy doing what the economy is doing right now, right? And there's a lot of, aside from the housing market, a lot of people are afraid to buy a house because they're afraid of what the economy is going to do as well. Yeah. And that's always something that we deal with. I mean, we always talk about this too. There's always a reason for somebody not to buy, and there's always a reason for somebody to have fear and to be afraid to purchase a home. And, an economic recession, that's a big one, right? When you start hearing that and people talk about that, that's a lot of times where people are going to pull back, and it's normal. I do think that the fact that this thinks we're going to have a hard landing in housing, to be honest, I don't know how hard of a landing it's going to be. I mean, it's drastic. It is. It's a drastic change, because think about what it was like in January through March and now what we're at today.
Yeah.
It was a drastic change. I think a 10 to 20% drop in home prices, although that sounds scary. I mean, we've talked about this before. Home prices have surged 40% in the last couple of years, so going back down 20%, it's not that bad, right?
It's all about timing, right? If you bought in 2020 and you experienced a 40% gain, the 20% depreciation isn't really anything no skin off your back, because you're not losing anything. But if you bought at the peak and then you're potentially an investor or a flipper, you're going to feel that burn, right? So it's all about timing, and it also depends on the type of buyer you are. The average person that we work with is a long-term homeowner.
Right.
So a lot of these market changes that happen in 6 months or 12 months, when the average person is in a home nowadays, how long? 10 years? I was reading an article. I felt like it used to be the average homeowner was in a property for like 5 to 7 years. I feel like now it's 10 to 15 years.
And that's the other thing too, that there's a subject matter that comes up, is people don't want to sell their home right now.
Yeah.
So that's like this cycle we've been in lately too, because it's like, I don't want to go back out on the market. I don't want to sell my home. Where am I going to go? I don't want to pay this interest
I've already
rate.
got a great interest
I've
rate.
already got a great, I locked in at 2 or 3 or 4%. Why would I sell now?
I'd love a 4-bedroom, but we're making it work with 3,
right.
And I've got a 3.5% interest rate, so I'm not. What's the point of moving?
That's the other thing that's kind of.
Plus, if I list my home right now, some of the narrative out there from the seller's perspective is it's also not a good time to sell, because if it's not a good time to buy, then it can't be a good time to sell. But what do we see all the time, every single day? Homes selling.
Yeah, I mean that's
every day.
Every single day. homes are bought and sold.
Every single day, right? So,
Transactions happen every day.
But people think in absolutes. It's not a good time to buy. It's not a good time to sell. Well, that's BS, right? It's not a good time for you maybe, but don't tell that to everybody because other people might have a different scenario.
Perfect
right?
example. Clients that didn't want to go out in the market the last 2 years because they were like, I don't want to get in a bidding war and pay like $100,000 over asking for a home that I can barely afford at that price. Why would I go pay $100,000 over asking? Now they're like, I'll go into this market where the interest rate's higher, but at least I don't have to pay so much over asking.
We had this conversation on the way up here. You put 4 homes under contract last week. In the last 7 to 10 days, you put 4 homes under contract. 4 buyers under contract. And I asked you, I said, man, how many of those buyers are getting loans? And I was thinking to myself, maybe only one was getting a loan, and you go, all of them. And I was like, oh man, like
your reaction was pretty good.
I was like, all of them.
You kind of look and snickered at me.
Because even me, like I'm in the business, I'm a real estate agent, and even me sometimes thinking like, yeah, you know, a 7% interest rate's pretty high right now, but it's not 7. You know, it's not. I mean, it's 7. But like if you work with a lender that's going to create creative options for you, or you buy down the rate, like you can get a better rate. You know, it's pick your poison.
Right.
Do you want a 3.5% interest rate and you want to pay $150,000 above asking and maybe?
And you get to go out and get your heart broken once a week when you find your dream home and somebody else buys it because you get beat. That's the thing.
Right.
It was such a tough market for buyers, and now they're finally getting a chance to go get a home, and you know, affordability is the only key that might be standing in the way. But God, it's much better for buyers right now.
For me too, like I've always been a little bit of a contrarian, so I am a big fan of doing what most people don't do. And so when everybody in the world is buying, that's an indicator for me. Like maybe it's not the best time for me to buy. And when everybody is like, no, I see that as opportunity. Now I have no competition. Now what's possible? What type of deal can I negotiate now that I don't have to deal with 15 or 25 other people? Nobody else wants this property. I'm the only one that wants it. Yeah, the rates are higher. What can I do to make them a little bit more affordable? Boom, 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 boom. And now we're putting deals together. And that's the beauty of this current market, and where we're gonna shine is that in the last 2 years, agents didn't have to be agents. You didn't have to be good. You could just list a property, you didn't have to put any effort into it, and it would sell because the market was so scorching hot. And now all the agents who don't have a lot of experience with marketing or home preparation, now like I'm getting calls from people that are like, hey Robert, I've had my house listed for 6 months and it's not selling. Can you let me know why it's not selling? And I'm like, well, you have an agent. Why are you calling me? Well, my agent's not giving me any information. And I found you online, or I got your information from somebody. I'd love to know why you think my home hasn't sold yet. And I can look at it within 10 seconds, I could figure out 3 or 4 glaring reasons why it hasn't sold yet. It's because the agents haven't shifted their strategy. They're using the same strategy in 2020 and 2021 as they're using in the 3rd and 4th quarter of 2022. And it's not gonna work. You're not gonna win. Here says, sales of newly built homes dropped below pre-pandemic levels in September, and cancellations are now double what they were a year ago, according to the National Association of Home Builders. Where did we read, basically, the peak of the market was in May of 2022.
It was May. Yeah.
And we've seen a consistent decline since.
Because that's in June when they hiked the rates up, and that's when it started.
Yeah.
So. I think it was like they started to go up in like April and May. I think that's when it was happening. And then we started to see June, everything started to kind of taper down a little bit and mellow out and soften a little bit. And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to probably go back to 2020. So just before the pandemic hit and we did the low interest rates, we're probably going to revert, and that's where my prediction is we'll land somewhere where the housing market was right around 2019.
They're basically just making the last 2 years go away.
For the most part, yeah.
Right,
I think every market's going to be different. Every sub-market's going to be different on pricing and how things fall. But I don't think we're going to go anywhere further past 2019. So pricing and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. COVID happened. Rates artificially dropped, stimulated the economy. It was a wild ride for 2 years. Let's raise the rates. Let's normalize and reset everything. Let's get back to pre-pandemic 2022 real estate levels, and let's move forward.